Hey there, thanks for joining us on the Chief Executive Aviator. I'm Simon Turner, your host, and if you're wondering what we're all about, well, we're pilots who happen to run businesses, or maybe we're business people who happen to fly. Either way, we've figured out that flying gives us a serious edge. Every week, I sit down with another pilot entrepreneur or executive who's discovered that their plane isn't just some cool ride, it's actually a secret weapon for growing their business. We're talking real stories about landing deals and actual landings, expanding markets, and yes, still making it home in time for dinner. Whether you're already flying for business or you're just dreaming about it, you're going to hear some pretty amazing stories about how aviation changes the trajectory of lives and businesses every day. So get your pre-flight done. We've got a great conversation headed your way. Welcome, Adam. Really appreciate you joining us on the Chief Executive Aviator podcast. I'm sitting here with Adam Rotert, better known as Airshow Adam in our flying group here in Tulsa. You're also the founder of AvHome, a real estate agency specializing in aviation property in particular. It's great to have you here, Adam. Our audience is going to love to hear from you and your very unique angle. And just to start things off, a birdie tells me that you had your dream start in aviation in this P-51 right behind us. I'm assuming that's probably what set you on your path, having aviation as a big part of your life.
Yeah, no doubt. So I was about 10 years old when this opportunity came about for this to be my first airplane ride. So I guess it's downhill from there, but it was pretty incredible. So not being able to hardly see out the sides, but getting that ride is pretty cool. Yeah,
you can feel this in your bones. You almost don't need to see outside, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty incredible. So I guess how that came about was I grew up just coming to the airport loving airplanes and every Saturday morning pretty much I was out at the airport watching airplanes and this is obviously a P-51 that it was my favorite airplane from the time I was probably 5-6 years old going to air shows. And the owner of the airplane, Ike Inns, he raced at Reno at the time. He did quite a bit of air shows and fly-ins, and it was somebody I always looked up to and always talked to at all the events or fly-ins and air shows. And I was 10 years old when I got invited to go for a ride in the airplane. So we flew to the Muskogee Air Show off the wing of a B-25 and another P-51.
Oh, cool.
And it was crazy experience, but ultimately that kind of opened the door for me in aviation and kind of gave me the opportunity. And Ike and Liz, the owners of the airplanes, they're just grandma and grandpa now, and it's kind of what gave me the opportunity to do all this. So now I'm enjoying being around it and flying cool airplanes out here. So
how cool.
It's pretty cool.
What was the first plane that you were behind the controls of? What did you learn to fly in?
The first plane that I took the controls and flew, it would have been it was a de Havilland Chipmunk. So
cool.
So we went out and did aerobatics and got to kind of feel the airplane, what it was like. And
amazing.
And then from that point started learning to fly to J3. So that was kind of what got me going there.
How cool. And you're restoring a Chipmunk now. Is it the same Chipmunk?
Or no, this one's actually a Super Chipmunk. Yeah. So it's going to look semi-stock, but it's got a Continental IO360. So
oh wow!
It's 210 horse and it should be able to do lots of good loops and rolls and
how cool. Adjunct Chipmunk stories in Australia, they were used for a lot of training and stuff like that. And I think my grandfather spent a bit of time learning in one. He was a pilot in the Air Force, but my best friend's shearing shed that they used to shear sheep ran on an old de Havilland Chipmunk engine to run all
Gypsy
of the...
Major.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So it was kind of, I think after the war, it got repurposed and thrown into a shearing shed.
Yeah, it's crazy. The 100-year-old engine is still being flown today.
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe, but does good.
How cool. And so you learned to fly in the J3 and you had kind of already some aerobatic experience and stuff like that. And that's, I guess, why we call you Airshow Adam. But you kept kind of in that train, and I guess what were the sort of aircraft you flew through your journey, your learning journey and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I flew the J3 until it was time to solo, and then because of insurance stuff, I switched over to a 152, soloed, and then finished out my training in that. And then from that point, flew the J3, flew a Super Cub, the Chipmunk, and I guess kind of worked my way up to now flying the T6 and our good friends 185 and some of those airplanes. So it's fun. I love general aviation. I love the warbirds. I love kind of being able to share that stuff. So, and obviously, I guess aerobatics as well. So
nice one.
How cool. Yeah, you've had a very interesting and fun journey to get to where you are now. And you obviously had enough of a passion for aviation, and it was sort of, it's in your blood that you decided to go into business in aviation. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Avhome and what sort of customers you help out and clients you help out.
Yeah, so it started, I worked as an aircraft mechanic until COVID, and so that was something I was doing. And once that all started, I knew kind of there was probably going to be a shift at the employer I was at, and so I started looking. We had just bought a house and just kind of been through that process. So I started kind of thinking like, what's going to be my ticket out of this? And I always kind of looked at real estate investing that way, is like this will probably be a way that I can eventually kind of get out of the 9-to-5 world. Yeah, and so that was something it was already on my mind, and I could see the writing on the wall with the company I was at, and I just thought, you know what, why not now? So I got my real estate license. First year, I had a really good year and kind of just continued on from there. And this is my 4th year of real estate. And so this year, we've really started making that push towards aviation real estate, started up Avhome Aviation Real Estate. The goal there is I watched for the first couple of years in real estate. Obviously, being passionate about aviation, we've got some great air parks in the Tulsa area and in Oklahoma. And I would watch these, and I would kind of watch the marketing. I'd watch the representation that the aviators were getting as they would either buy or sell, all the way down as kind of, I guess, my joke about it. It's like we have realtors that are representing aviators and then selling either homes and hangars, but they don't even know how to spell hangar. So how are they going to represent you? Like they don't know the first thing about aviation, but they're going to try to sell you an aviation property. So all the way up to, I mean, a lot of these are higher end properties, and I just didn't feel like aviators were getting the representation they needed and should get. And so that was something I watched for a while. Like, how can we do it different? How can we do it better? This year we've really started to ramp that up and started having some success there, and we got a lot of exciting things coming. So we're going to continue to grow that and growing that as a brokerage and across the state of Oklahoma. So we're excited to see what this next year is going to bring.
How cool. When you're not in aviation and you start to kind of explore it and become part of the community and stuff like that, I don't think a lot of people realize there is a whole real estate element to it. And as you get further and further into it, your dream becomes, I would love to have my house and my hangar right next to each
Absolutely.
other.
Yeah, and kind of my thing was, it's a way also to protect these aviation properties, because I feel like general aviation, at times it feels like it's struggling, or it's an older generation, and like, how do we make it more accessible to my generation? And I think it starts with, like, aviation's my passion. So real estate's obviously our business, but this is something I'm passionate about, and I want to protect our air parks. So we've got some great ones around here, and we've got a couple that they're beautiful air parks, but they're 50-60% non-aviation owned. And some of that comes back to just a representation. Whenever you see a property listed and it's got it's a 70 by 70 hangar, and it's a beautiful hangar, and they've got it listed, oh, it's a great shop for your lake toys. And like, no, this is on an air park, and this should be marketed, and we should be doing everything we can to make sure an aviator buys this property. And marketing it to an aviator, and sharing the airport, sharing details about the air park, and how we can get more traffic in there. And I love some of what we do. We do fly-in open houses, and it's just a way to connect with that community and stay connected with the community. And it's worked out very well to bring buyers and additional traffic that way. So
how cool.
And what we have right now is any property. We've got the only website where you can just go right away to a featured listings, and you can see anything within an hour and a half of Tulsa. That's anything that's on the market, it instantly publishes there, and it's creating kind of a one-stop shop for, if you're looking for aviation real estate, think you want a home, think you want a hangar, you just go to our website and you can find anything that's listed. And
how cool.
And we'll continue to expand that map of how we're operating that.
And to continue on with the sort of the dream theme, I mean, for a lot of entrepreneurial aviators, the dream would be, I got a business meeting somewhere, I can roll out, jump in my plane, fly to where I need to, fly back, park in effectively in my backyard.
Be home at night, Just land and taxi up, and you're home. That's it.
Walk in for dinner, and there you go. You know, on that side of things, obviously your business is aviation, but do you actually use aviation in your business to get out to some of these sites? And I know you've taken a friend of ours and myself out to a potential property that we were looking at, where we landed on the property, on the grass strip on the property. But is that something that you're trying to leverage a little bit as well?
Yeah, I mean, right now I live about 5 minutes from this hangar. And so anytime we're showing aviation property, I try to make it a point to to fly in.
Yep.
And a couple of reasons for that. One, it's not that you're necessarily saving time in the short distances that I go, but it's more fun. But it's also, it kind of lets the buyers know, or when you show up either with a buyer or a seller and you land there and they see you taxi up, it's like, okay, I don't have to explain to them what this is, or I don't have to explain it. Like, they understand the airport, they understand the benefit of this property, they understand like this isn't just a home with a shop. And so there's a little bit of, I feel like maybe some built-in credibility there when you can land and taxi up. And
Totally.
And yeah, we've enjoyed from time to time when you have a buyer come through and you say, okay, well, let's just meet at the hangar and we're going to fly to these air parks, or we'll go show you 3 or 4 of these air parks. And, and as they try to find where they want to, being able to bounce from air park to air park, it obviously saves a lot of time. So sometimes it does save time and it does make it more efficient, but I think some of that is we do it because we love flying.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's also a bit of theater as well.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're trying to sell, quite often it's like you're trying to share enthusiasm, or you want to transfer enthusiasm about what you're trying to sell, and quite often it is that's a big part of it. They can put themselves right into where it's going to be when they own an aircraft and they own a hangar on this property or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think even as well, I mean, when you're flying into the air park, you see kind of the land surrounding it. You see kind of how an approach feels, and you can kind of help a buyer get a picture of what that would look like. If they were to buy a property there. So yeah, it definitely helps.
And it's not something, you know, a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs use aviation to get more face time with their clients or their customers, because that's what, you know, drives trust and relationships and stuff like that. For you, you're getting FaceTime, but it's you're sort of like you're using it as a tool to like transport the potential buyer to the future of what, you know, what they're going to feel like here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're doing these things, you're flying to maybe a grass strip somewhere or wherever, and you want to go around and see a lot, but you probably got some like safety considerations as well. How do you sort of factor that in when you're trying to do a showing or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think some of it just depends on the airport or air park you're going into. Like, I love taking the T6 in because it's just big and loud and it's fun. So I love flying the T6, but it doesn't always make sense. Like, it's called Snake Creek Wilderness Air Park. It's over off of 10 Killer Lake. There's plenty of runway for it. It's about 2,800 feet and a 500 foot displaced threshold. So there's plenty of runway there, but there's a big kind of cliff off the end. And so the way I look at that is like, do I necessarily want to be in a T6 on short final coming uphill and there's a 75-foot drop off on the approach end and you're coming in? Not that I don't trust these warbirds and older airplanes, but you trust them more when you have an alternative. So sometimes that's more of what goes through my mind, is more like for some of these air parks, they're phenomenal, but you feel better maybe when you have a little more margins there. So for me, it's more managing like what airplane do we take based on kind of where we're headed. So absolutely, just the runway conditions, all of that kind of plays into it.
And what does your typical client look like? Are they entrepreneurial aviators? Are they, you know, retirees? I guess it's probably a bit of everything.
Yeah, on the buyer side, we've had a lot of out-of-state buyers coming into our market, which was something that we saw that a lot during like the COVID time, like 2020 through 2022. We saw a lot of out-of-state traffic here, but it's been interesting to see, especially this year, like how many out-of-state buyers they come across what we're doing, and they're looking for their next home. And so we've had definitely some out-of-state buyers that they're retired, or they're business people, or they're looking for the place they want to retire. Kind of, obviously Oklahoma real estate's a little more affordable than California and Colorado, some of these other places that they're coming from. So I think that's played into it. But yeah, just looking for good communities. And I think when these properties are marketed well, then it just brings light to them, like, hey, that's a great community. And it's another market or another state, but they're seeing the communities, and kind of it connects, or they see a future there. So.
Nice. What's the most memorable trip you've had out to a air park with a client?
Probably going to OK-18 with you and Steven. That's an incredible piece of property.
Tell me about it.
It's still for sale, by the way. So if you're interested in basically an island below Grand Lake, quite a piece of property. So
for the listeners, get onto. I mean, if you got the money to spend on that, it's amazing.
2,600 feet, and it's water on 3 sides, and right on a river. It's as incredible as it gets, with a couple hangars, and big house, big dock, and you can do about anything there. So
Yeah.
I love that piece of property. I really, really want that to stay in the aviation community because it's such an incredible piece of property. That's one that we definitely want to see an Aviator buy it. That way we can definitely keep that as a cool airport and hopefully have some good fly-ins there.
Yeah, it is well set up for that for sure. Tell me a little bit about kind of like where you see yourself and your aviation journey going with business. So are you going to fly the Chipmunk halfway across the country, selling an air park in Arizona or something, or are you get a different type of aircraft, PA-46 or something to get you further, or what are you sort of thinking for your aviation journey? What's your aspirations, I guess?
Like short term, we'll keep flying. I mean, we'll get this Super Chipmunk in the air and we'll fly that, and it'll have some marketing, some branding on it a little bit. But we'll do that short term and for short distances. Kind of in the long term, what I see, and we definitely want to eventually grow beyond just the state of Oklahoma. So I think long term, it would be kind of going to that next step. Probably, I love the Malibu, I love the Meridian, I love that class of airplane, and that would definitely be something that if I said 5 to 10 years from now, what would be the ideal airplane for the mission? And maybe sometimes it's making the mission line up with your dream of airplane. I think it would be 5 to 10 years from now, definitely kind of looking in that class of airplane to travel around the country and either work with clients directly or work with agents around the country to help represent aviators to this.
Nice. Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurial aviators that I speak to have a similar sort of thing, is like they might be doing stuff relatively local or maybe within an hour, 2 hours flying time of here or wherever they are. And then they've got aspirations and dreams and they have a similar, like, hey, they want to move up to an M class or they want to get to a PC-12 so they can fly their team around, and they want to go not just local, they want to go regional or national, and they see it as like a tool really for their business. Yeah,
and I think probably, obviously, the business may be a little bit different if I wasn't a pilot, but real estate is real estate. But being a pilot, it definitely makes it, like when you start thinking about Texas or Florida or Arizona or California, anywhere else, that's like, well, that's not that much to overcome. Like obviously we want to grow and using a little bit of common sense, but when you think about the tool that being a pilot and being able to jump in an airplane and in 3 hours you can get to most of these destinations, that it makes it not as big of a hurdle to overcome. So it definitely helps us to see that bigger picture and that kind of goal of being eventually kind of a national kind of one-stop shop. So
nice.
Yeah.
If you load up a buyer in this thing and fly it into the air park, you may sell every single piece of aviation property in the country.
that would be the dream. But the
insurance company might look sideways at that. All right, well we'll change gears here and do a bit of fun stuff, a little bit of a lightning round. What's the fastest aircraft you've flown?
I mean, I think it just had to be the P-51. Besides being in some corporate jets and stuff like that, I've never really done much flying other than sitting in the right seat and flying a little bit. But definitely probably the P-51.
What's the top speed on this thing?
They say the top speed's 505. Most of the time when you're cruising around, you're in the 300 miles an hour range. So,
and it has no V&E, right? As in you just can't break it. You can fly at whatever speed
correct.
You want.
I think it would get to 0.82 Mach, and that's just that was kind of where it would, aerodynamics just wouldn't allow it to go any faster. So you're not going to break one apart though. Yeah. And
you were telling me the if the engine gives out, the best glide speed is 170 or something.
Yes, that's what's not friendly about this airplane. And definitely you're on a much faster trip or ride to the ground. You're kind of along for the ride there. So amazing piece of history. Incredible airplane.
I took a ride in a A36 Bonanza, and I was looking at buying a plane, and the CFI that was flying with me said to work out the best glide speed in that plane, you drop a brick out the window and follow it down, because that's about, and it sounds like this is even worse.
Definitely, probably more so than that. But it's a lot of mass coming down.
Nice one. What's your dream aviation destination?
Dream aviation destination? Well, it would probably be, it kind of tied into real estate. I think eventually my wife and I would like to have a home and hangar on in one of the air parks in Florida. That would probably be kind of something we'd both enjoy and kind of get a lot of use out of. So I think that would probably be one of the air parks down there.
Nice. There's some beautiful ones down there.
Absolutely.
It's like you're right near the beach, and it's not a bad life.
Good communities, good aviation communities. And what's a dream aircraft for you, and why? I think a dream airplane, it would be not necessarily a mission for it, but I think it would have to be the P-51. Just growing up around it and loving the history so much.
Totally.
it would be an airplane that this would
Yeah.
be kind of the ultimate dream, and
Yep.
someday being able to acquire one and fly it, that would be the ultimate dream. So.
Well, you're very close now, and this one has some pretty unique history too, right? It flew over the Bay of Tokyo on the
So
signing of the surrender.
yeah, so this actually flew in World War II as the Widowmaker. It's now called the Miracle Maker, but
Yeah.
flew as the Widowmaker in World War II, had 7 kills, had a lot of history, and then following World War II, it was one of the first 7 Mustangs that helped start the Israeli Air Force. So went over to Israel, helped started that Air Force, and then I believe in the 70s it came back to the States, and that's when restoration started, and ended up flying again in the 80s. So yeah, quite a piece of history and that it brings. So.
And the viewers probably can't see this, but it is, out of all of the restored P-51s that I've seen, I mean, it's in beautiful condition, and it's just amazing.
Yep.
What's one technology or tool that's sort of transformed your aviation experience? Because you started flying in probably a pure steam gauge, no GPS kind of world, and now...
I think the only thing I could say is probably ForeFlight. It makes it easier because like a lot of times either in a Super Cub or a Chipmunk, I'm not using much else besides ForeFlight, and even getting into an airplane with a glass panel, it's just kind of my go-to because it's what's familiar. So that's probably that would be it. Because just in general, I'm not using much, kind of a very basic Garmin, if anything.
Yep.
So.
Nice one. Any advice for aspiring pilot entrepreneurs, people that kind of want aviation to be part of their business or want to go into business in aviation?
Yeah, aviation's awesome. I think something that it feels like aviation brings, and maybe it's just because it's my world, I think aviation brings a certain passion. Like if you're passionate about aviation, I feel like you can maybe go further because it's so expensive, it maybe forces you to work a little harder, do a little bit more. But I feel like aviation just brings such a passion and dream that it just like you can never just stop when you're a pilot and you're maybe in business, and you can never just say, okay, this is good enough, because there's always that next step or that next goal, and to get there, maybe it requires more out of me in business, and that I think that makes aviation very cool though, and just like there's so many aviators that share just such a passion for it, and so it kind of pushes you to go a little further. So
totally,
it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. It's amazing. So
yeah, my wife always tells me that I don't dabble. I go full into anything, but she says with aviation, there's like no bottom to it. So being a non-dabbler, you can just go so deep and go forever and never touch the bottom, basically. Yeah.
Sometimes it's the bottom, and sometimes you feel like you're going up. But it's fun. It's well worth it.
Yeah. Nice one. Well, Adam, it's been awesome talking to you. Great to learn a little bit more about you and Avhome and how you use aviation in your business. And thanks for joining us on the Chief Executive Aviator.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Right.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks for flying with us today. If you're getting value from these conversations with other pilot entrepreneurs and executives, do me a really quick favor. Hit that subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what app you're using, so you'll never miss another episode. And if you've got an extra minute and you loved us, drop us a 5-star review. Those reviews help other aviation-minded business folk find us, and honestly, they really just make my day. What about you? Have you got a story about using your plane to grow your business, or maybe someone you know? Well, shoot me a message on X at Simon G. Turner or at the Chief Executive Aviator podcast, or pop me an email, simon@turneraircraft.com. See you on the next Chief Executive Aviator.